Robbie Brantley, kinesiology student at Cal Baptist University. This is my lovely assistant, Mylene Brantley. We're here to demonstrate a few preventative and rehabilitative exercises for you. This first exercise that we're going to demonstrate is the plyo blowback exercise that could be used for rehabilitating the ulnar collateral ligament. So my assistant here is going to help demonstrate the movement. We're going to have her face squarely to the pitch back or trampoline, and we're going to have her get into the overhead throwing phase part of the throwing motion by having her horizontally adduct her shoulder about 90 degrees, have her elbow flexed about 90 degrees in the overhead throwing position. So from here, the athlete is going to use internal rotation through the sagittal plane to propel the ball to the pitch back. The pitch back is then going to propel the ball back, and the athlete is going to have to catch and absorb the force of the ball in external rotation, which will help work the antagonist muscles of the elbow, thus creating a more stable environment for the newly constructed ulnar collateral ligament. So Mylene is going to go ahead here and demonstrate a couple repetitions. As you can see, she's creating the internal rotating force, propelling the ball forward, and having to absorb and catch the ball in external rotation. It's also important for the athlete to, instead of oscillating through the exercises, to reset the arm into the anatomical position for overhead throwing and perform the next repetition. You can see the overhead throwing motion here created is putting the ulnar collateral ligament in the greatest amount of tension for the throwing motion. She'll perform this at about 15 to 20 repetitions, around 3 to 5 sets, to really create that fatigue, muscle fatigue, to improve her muscular endurance and stability. The athlete will perform this 3 to 4 days throughout the week, allowing the other days for rest, recovery, and the rebuilding of that tissue around the elbow. And then as the muscle builds and she gets stronger, she can progress to a different phase of this exercise where she can mimic more closely the entire throwing motion. So we're going to have her face the pitch back with her shoulders perpendicular, and starting to use the full kinetic chain of the body to propel the ball forward. So go ahead and demonstrate a few repetitions. As you can see now, that our athlete demonstrated is using her torso to generate even more force to propel the ball forward. This in turn creates greater force or greater stretch on the ulnar collateral ligament, and will help her get closer and closer to the readiness to be back in the field. This will also help her proprioception, where her body is through space, using the entire throwing motion, getting used to that kinetic chain again. But this has been a demonstration of the plyo blowback exercise for rehabilitating your ulnar collateral ligament. All right, thank you, Manny. So for our second preventative or rehabilitative exercise, we're going to demonstrate an exercise for your rotator cuff muscles, specifically the supraspinatus muscle. The supraspinatus muscle is the most commonly injured muscle in the rotator cuff, especially during overhead throwing sports like baseball. So for this exercise, we're going to use band resistance. So we're going to go ahead and have our athlete stand facing square to the line of pole of our band. So go ahead and grab that. We're going to have the athlete, she's already there, go ahead and start in 90 degrees of horizontal adduction, and then also 90 degrees of flexion in the elbow, with her hand and forearm pronated parallel with the floor. The athlete will then concentrically externally rotate the arm to its end range along the axis that the humerus has created. All right, with a pause at the top, isometrically, the athlete can then eccentrically guide the weight back down. This will be performed at about 15 to 20 repetitions to create that muscle fatigue that helps build the muscular endurance and stability in the joint. They'll do this about 15 to 20 repetitions. They can do it in between 3 to 5 sets depending on their capabilities within their phases of rehabilitation. As the athlete progresses, they can start working more to that 5-set range. And then further in the progression to help them regain that neuromuscular connection or their proprioception, the athletic trainer can go ahead and assist the athlete during the exercise. Go ahead and take it back into the external rotation. The athletic trainer can add perturbations, right? So they can start adding in external forces, forcing the shoulder to stabilize even further, creating a greater stimulus on the shoulder joint. But yeah, this has been another demonstration of a preventative or rehabilitative exercise, this one specifically for your rotator cuff and your supraspinatus. Okay, so for our third demonstration here, we're going to demonstrate an exercise for rehabilitating a injured meniscus. So we can't really rehabilitate the meniscus after it's been cut out, but we can help build the tissue around the knee to help support the meniscus in the athletic movements. So here we're going to demonstrate the agility dot drill. You can see it has 5 targets kind of set in that, similar to the dice when it lands on the number 5. But we're going to go ahead and have the athlete start on one target, and she's going to bound from one target to the next. This will go ahead and create or simulate the valgus and varus forces created during athletic activity. The athlete will perform that for about 30 seconds. It can't really be quantified in a number of reps just because of the quick oscillations between jumps. So she'll perform for about 30 seconds, rest for another 30 seconds, and then come back and perform another set. She could do this in between like 4 or 5 sets, approximately 3 to 4 times throughout the week. The other days just allowing for the recovery and strengthening of those ligaments around the knee. And then as the athlete progresses, and to also isolate recovery on the injured knee, the athlete can perform this on one foot. This is going to challenge the neuromuscular connection and the proprioception of the body as the athlete has to balance while creating these valgus and varus forces on the knee, thus creating a more stable environment for the meniscus inside the joint. So this has been a demonstration of the agility dot drill to rehabilitate an injured knee.